Hello and welcome to NARC Live on Wednesday the 3rd of July 2024, coming to you live from Norfolk on the east coast of England with Tammy M0TC.
Hello.
And me, David G7URP. Lovely to see you. On tonight's show, Anthony K8ZT and Dennis W6DQ are here live for the last of their talks on HF for beginners. We have club news with pictures from Radio by the Seaside and the friendly fox hunt. And we find out what on earth this is. Had a few entries. If you think you know and you haven't told us already, just pop it onto BATC or Facebook and we'll try and include that when we get to that part of the programme. But first, we have some club news, and it's really exciting news because it's many congratulations to the NARC VHF contest group who won the open section of the 144 megahertz contest in May from Trimmingham, and we can show you now the certificate that they've received, which makes it all official. I think what's remarkable is, although the club is known for contesting, it's mainly on HF contests, and this contest group, which specifically focuses at VHF, have only been going for about a year. So it's really quite an achievement. And well done to team leader Phil, G4LPP, along with his teammates G4CDN, G4DML, G3YLA, M0SYW, G3PXT and G6WQN. And thanks also, of course, to everyone who helped and worked them as well. So well done, team. Really, really good. For a year to go from nothing to winning was brilliant, and I know they're planning for something else later in the year as well, even more competitive, I think, September time, but we'll tell you about that nearer the time. Now, since we last met, there have been a couple of summer events. We were just talking about it then. You didn't miss summer, did you? Like all of you watching anyway in Norfolk will know what I mean, but I'm aware that today at least. So we're going to have a look back at the Radio by the Seaside event we ran on Sunday, the 23rd of June. And thanks very much to Mike Simmons for his pictures and for James M0UKS for this drone footage in this video. There you go. I hope you were jogging along to that home to keep warm, maybe. Anyway, that was really good. Thank you very much to everybody who supported that event. I think it really kind of heralded the start of summer. Not a cloud in the sky or anything. Not the end, I hope, no. But mustn't keep on about the weather. Our American friends who are going to join us later will think we're obsessed with it, but we are. Anyway, thanks to everybody who took part of that. It might well be that we do one later in the year, because that's what I was asked last year for that. We can't have that lovely big patch of space all to ourselves, though, during the school holidays. So maybe we'll meet again in something like September. If you'd like, interested in that, next time you see me, just let me know. And if I get 4 or 5 people at least that are interested, we'll do it. Because I did do number 2. We did the second one last year, and it was really popular, and everybody attended. But the year before, I arranged it, as a few people asked. There was just poor old Nev, M0NFY, and me. I didn't make much of a party. So anyway, watch out for hopefully a second Radio by the Seaside later in the year, when the summer will be here. Mustn't keep on about it. I mentioned it once, but I think I got away with it. Anyway, the other thing that's happened since we last met, in terms of summer events, is our friendly fox hunt, a direction finding competition. We call it a friendly because it's no trophy at the end of it, but it's really a good time to dust off your equipment. Maybe you've made some new equipment, you want to give it a try. And the foxes generally don't make it quite so difficult. So let's have a look at some of the motley teams.
Yeah, sorry. There we go.
Okay, hi Tammy. And so this is Team Tornado with James M0UKS, Lynn, Kevin M0UJD and James G7PQF. Team Wrong Direction, this is Ben 2E0VFN and Rachel on the field there at Thorpe Recreation Ground, getting started out. Next we've got the teams called Anything Will Do with Richard M7RDE and Michael. And penultimate team was Team Fusion with Bob K8ZT and Mike G8EEY. You see what the sun, look at it. That was the day after the Radio by the Seaside, and that really was beautiful. I won't keep on about the weather though.
No.
Great. Destruction, and then finally Team Destruction Crew. I'm sure you know why they're called that now. That's Sunny M0SYW, Paul G4ZBA and Mark G0TMT. Smiling away there. And the Fox team, I should tell you, who were, well, I'll tell you where they were in a moment. That was these, and that was the Bitten DX group. We've got Alec, Ian, Steve, and Peter there, who are the Bitten DX group. No booze, please. They were the Foxes because they won last year. Did I mention the weather? I think I did.
Yeah.
Not a cloud in the sky. Now, they were actually at the Marsham Arms, if you know where that is. They're just on the sort of Holt Road, just out of Norwich. And people had to direction find to that. And the team that got it in the shortest distance were the winners. Everybody left it, by the way, at 7:30 in the evening. The contest ended at 9:30. But anyway, who found them in the shortest mileage just was Team Wrong Direction with Ben and Rachel. And they just used, incidentally, a DF100. They had none of the sophisticated Doppler systems that some of those teams have got on their roofs. In fact, thinking about it, I'm thinking 3 teams, I think, so half the teams had Doppler systems. There were 6 teams altogether had Doppler systems on the roof. But Ben and Rachel did really well to do it with traditional basic equipment, 10 quid or so plus a handheld. So well done to you two. Now, the next one, I've been told by the Foxes, will not be as easy. And in fact, Steve, a member of their team, sent me this picture earlier on saying that the Foxes were getting ready. Look forward to meeting them on the motorway. No, not. Anyway, Steve, thanks for sending me that picture. Okay, all right. So well done to all of you again who took part in that. Now, the Fox Hunt, the trophy, which is the really, really important one, is on the Monday, the 22nd of July. So that's not very long. Let me see, that's just under 3 weeks' time, isn't it? So don't forget that, and we'll be telling you about that later on. In fact, let's look at some summer events now. And this is a couple of new dates for your diary, one of them anyway. We've got the Trophy Fox Hunt on Monday, the 22nd of July. And we've got Lighthouses on the Air on Saturday the 17th and Sunday 18th of August. But happening even before this is this Sunday, we've got this, which is the Barford Radio Rally. Now, I mustn't assume that all of you have ever been to our radio rally. A lot of people have. It's been going many, many, many years. Our club's been organising it for about 20 odd years, and before that Raynet organised it. It's sort of 30 or 40 years old. It's a very traditional place. It's at Barford and Ramplingham Village Hall and Green. Details are on the newsletter and on our website. And these are the sort of times, it really helps us a lot if you can stick to these sort of times. So those of you who are down to help, and by the way, if you do want to help, you need to let me know sort of by the middle of tomorrow, really, because I'm drawing up the rosters and so everybody knows what they're doing. But that's from 7:30. Your help would be appreciated by then, but nobody else, ideally, before then. At 8 o'clock, we welcome all traders between 8 and 9 o'clock. And that half an hour, you see, gives us time to set out and mark out the field and everything. He's got a massive playing field to mark out. And then visitors to the rally, if you're not trading, are very welcome from 9 o'clock. So we look forward to seeing lots of you at the weekend at the Barford Radio. And Tammy and I will be there, and lots of other club members. Thanks to everybody, by the way, the club members who have volunteered. If you want to volunteer, say please let me know though by tomorrow, because otherwise there won't be anything specific for you to do. One other thing I'd just like to mention for the summer, the email address is the usual one, radio@dcpmicro.com. The other thing I'd like to mention is that if you came to the forum either online or you came to the school and saw it, you know that trips were quite popular. And I was asked to arrange a coach trip to the National Hamfest again this year, which is in September. And I was also asked, could we arrange a trip to Radio Caroline and Bletchley Park? So I've just late yesterday, got quotes for the coaches for that. So I'm going to put them together, scrunch up some numbers, and in the next few weeks let you know. In particular, the Radio Caroline is limited on numbers, and because I'm not sure if a coach is going to be valid or viable really for that, because I think the most they can actually take is 30, but already they only do this once a month, and they've got quite a few dates already taken. So I'll act on these. I've just got to get Barford out of the way, to be honest, and then I'll look at it all again next week and put it on the newsletter. Okay, I think that's caught us up to date. Oh yes, now I do want to tell you about another thing that's happening on Monday. Now, some of you ordered the QMX Plus kit, which was a sort of an unofficial NARC purchase, really. 7 of us actually ordered one. Tammy and I ordered a kit, and 6 others ordered one, and it arrived just a few days ago. If you haven't already picked it up, then you can pick it up from Barford, as I said on my email. Anyway, by happy coincidence, on Monday, this coming Monday, the 8th of July, the day after Barford, that we're doing our Tonight at 8 webinar, which is something we do every month for the RSGB, and it's on the QMX, and we've got a slide here to show you. So this is all about the QMX multi-mode 160 to 6 meter transceiver kit, design and features. It's got live coming to us from Turkey, Hans Summers, G0 UPL, of course from QRP Labs, and if you've got any other questions about anything else as well, I should think we'll have time at the end. So if you've got a question on the QCX or any of his other models, or you just want to, he's a very, very interesting chap. Had a really good sort of life story, which we have featured before, but if you haven't seen it before, it's well worth watching, and especially, of course, if you're going to make one of those QMXs, either now or in the future, it would be well worth watching. If you want details of how to log on, you'll find the links all at rsgb.org/webinars. And the landing page is there now, isn't it, Tammy? I think you've already done it. Great, thank you. Now, just in time now for one bit of members news. And Paul G3VPT wrote to me and said, my son-in-law and grandson have dug a hole for his antenna mast socket, and my neighbour's son arranged delivery of a bag of ballast and set about filling the hole. But before he came, I decided to uncover the manhole lid that had been covered up in the drive for about 40 or 50 years. He said it's a good job I did, as a barrow full of cement wouldn't have gone through. When wet, the ballast takes up less volume, and the hole, and I didn't know that. I'd have thought it would have expanded, but anyway, good job I did, as the barrow, and the hole is now not fully filled in. The ground less than 2 feet down becomes sand where he lives, and so it was decided to order a bag of suitable size shingle and use the sand to mix the cement, and any stones left over can be put on our road. It's now covered up to prevent the hedgehogs falling in. Or anybody else, Paul. I'm not coming to see you until you've sorted that out. Anyway, we'll let you know when it's all finished. Thanks you very much, Paul. We look forward to seeing the mast up, the tenor mast, and of course full of all the aerials and things. Okay, enough from me talking. Tammy, over to you for your little people.
Yep, here's the little people this week. There's a little bit of an operation going on this week.
It's a cassette player. Do you know what that is?
I've read about them in a history book.
Oh, Tammy is It's spoiling it. That's really good.
How to get the tape out.
Yeah, that was a problem.
The
I can tell you.
table.
They wrapped themselves around the pulleys and things, and anybody knows that's a problem. And then you had to try. Sometimes you had to just give up and you cut them. And then you're not believing me, are you? But anyway, that's what you do. You cut the tape, and then you had to sort of splice it together. Most people at home just had a piece of sellotape, not proper splicing tape. So it kind of worked anyway. All right, thanks very much for showing us that. It's miniature-calendar.com, a new picture every day, and Tammy picks one out for us every week. So what have you been doing? I've just had one bit of news from you so far. Paul's big manhole that he was digging there. Do keep in touch with us. Send us details to the usual address, radio@dcpmicro.com. We need it by about 3 o'clock on the Wednesday of transmission, so that's in 2 weeks' time. And we would love to hear from you. Now let's go to that competition. And actually, before I do that, I just want to see something, because I've just seen it here really mentioned. Now, some of you know who were at the school last week, a week ago, that Tammy and I invigilated a course, an exam, a foundation exam for Mike Simmons. And in fact, earlier I mentioned him as just Mike Simmons. But it's even better news now, because he's not only passed the exam, and he's as far as the indicative mark we gave him, but he's actually got his call sign and he's put it onto Facebook here. So he's M7HEA. So congratulations, Mike. Lovely. I can talk to you about and can refer to you as Mike M7HEA and not just Mike Simmons. Thank you very much. Well done to you very much for doing your exam. I better not reveal your result on here, but you did really well. So it's quite tough nowadays. The foundation is not like it used to be, guys. So well done, Mike, on your new call sign. Right, let's have a look at this What's on Earth subject then. We asked you 2 weeks ago, what on earth is this? Now, we look online. We have got one person who's entered. John K8ZT says, what on earth? I think it's a ceramic triode valve for UHF or SHF. Steve G3VA says, this week's what on earth is a 7768 triode, a ceramic valve.
Bruce G4KZT, I think this week's mystery object is a New Vista, a miniature valve or tube, as our American friends call them. They were popular in the early 60s before being replaced by transistors.
Tom G8XQD says, this is a microwave triode, similar to, but smaller than, the used in an oven.
Bob G6PWS, I think this is an old metal ceramic planar triode tube. Never actually used or played with one, but they are useful as an RF amp in UHF ranges.
And Mike G8EY says, the latest item is a metal ceramic planar triode from iMac, GE or similar. And let's reveal
we can reveal
that it is a triode valve used in high-powered data transmission. So well done, everybody. I think it was fairly obvious that it was a electronic component of some kind, but probably not what it was. I certainly wouldn't be able to say it was a triode anyway. So well done to all of you. I think you all got that right. So well done. See if you're as clever with this one when we ask you, what on earth is this? Not allowed to give any clues, am I?
Nope.
All right. Do you know what that is? Drop it on an email to us before 3 o'clock on Wednesday week. radio@dcpmicro.com. What on earth is that, or what is it used for if you don't know the proper name for it? We look forward to hearing from you. Now that's almost it. Have I got something else to miss? Oh, someone just entered there. Steve G0KYA, a vacuum capacitor.
I think that was for this. I think that's a little bit behind.
Sorry, Steve. Yeah, it's because of the latency in the system, I think. But we had I'll give you a name check anyway. Thank you very much. But it wasn't. It was a triode valve. Anyway. Okay, now let's, before we go and meet our tonight's guest, let's have a look at what's happening at the club this week. On Sunday, we've got the GB2RS News on GB3MB at 7 o'clock. On Monday at 7:30, the Monday Night Net on GB3MB. At 8 o'clock, the 80-metre CW Net on 3.543 MHz. And also at 8 o'clock, that live webinar on tonight at 8, all about the QMX. And then next Wednesday, July the 10th, we're back at CNS School for a social informal meeting. And of course, don't forget, by the way, I didn't mention it again, but Sunday, of course, is our Barford Radio Rally as well, as we featured earlier. Full details will be on this week's newsletter and on the website. And of course, let us have your stories and your mystery objects for future competitions, and also this card, which we're always happy to send to somebody. We send almost one a week, I say, even nowadays. Just let us have the name and address of the person you'd like us to post it to. We'll add your name to ours and send it off. Well, now, for the last three NARC Lives before tonight, we've been featuring a series all about HF for beginners, learning all sorts of things. And I don't think it was just for beginners, because I've certainly picked up lots of other things, and talking to others at the club as well, many people have picked up various hints and tips from these great guys in the States. So it's lovely to welcome back Anthony, K8ZT, and Dennis, W6DQ.
Greetings, everyone. It's great to be back again for session number 4.
Good evening. Likewise.
Yep, good evening. Just to make us all jealous here, I mean, I know we are obsessed about the weather, but I did mention the weather when we met Anthony and Dennis just before we came on air. And Dennis, tell us what temperature it is in degrees C, if you don't mind, or you can tell us in Fahrenheit as well, in where you live. Oh my God.
There's the temperature here at this moment, 40 degrees C. And a little later on, it's going to be up to 44. It's not quite noon yet here. Okay. And by mid-afternoon, it's supposed to be 44 degrees. So it's...
Do you know, I wish I hadn't asked. What about for you? You're in Ohio, aren't you, Anthony?
Yes, we're playing roller coaster here. We had very hot weather up until the weekend, and then it actually got cold for 3 days, and then today we're hot again. So we're playing roller coaster here. Matter of fact, I actually had to put a blanket on my legs for the concert I was at on Sunday evening. I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt. I didn't bring a sweatshirt with me, so I had to end up putting one of the blankets on my legs because it dipped down, got very cold. But so we're doing roller coaster here, but it's definitely hot today.
Well, you're double the temperature we are, Dennis, anyway, I can tell you that. Just before we must get on to tonight's programme, but also last time we saw you, you were just preparing for Field Day, your big Field Day in the US. So how did that go?
We had a good time, but we did have to adjust things for the heat. We put up one less mast pole, and we parked all of the trailers that were and trucks that we're using for shelters under trees this year for shade. So it worked out pretty well, but it was very hot during setup, and we did end with two downpours of rain. The first one was enough to cool us down as we got ready to tear down, but then it immediately got hot and turned into a sauna here. So we then followed up with another rainstorm that at the very end after we packed everything up. So a lot of wet gear went home for drawing, but we had a great time. No insects this year. That was the one thing we had. No insects, no mosquitoes this year.
Wow.
Well, we had a hot field day at our location. We had a nice setup. We were 3 Alpha. We had 3 stations on the air plus a VHF station, and it was 43 degrees on Saturday.
You know, I think I almost regret now mentioning the weather. Say you're twice the temperature we are. Anyway, it's lovely that you had that.
It's not our first field day where we've dealt with the high temperatures. 6 years ago, it was the same. This year, at least, we had some nice air conditioning. We had a nice motorhome, a motorized caravan, I guess you'd call it, with air conditioning and a generator and all that. We had a lot of fun with that. It was nice and cool inside. Of course, if you ask my wife, she says, that wasn't cool. It was 90 degrees. Well, 90 degrees is better than 110.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, well, brilliant. Okay, well, we're looking forward to this final part of HF for Beginners. And as always, we ask you, but particularly maybe today, because it's the last one of the last sort of episode, if you're watching this and you've got any questions, queries or anything for Dennis or Anthony, then please drop them onto Facebook or BATC and we'll read them to them at the end. But now, over to you.
So what we're going to talk about tonight is we've gotten you on HF and you started operating, but there's some changes that you're going to need to be making in your amateur radio presence, we'll call it. So we're going to talk about what is establishing your HF presence, expanding your scope of operation, expanding your playground by new bands and new modes, competitive activities and award chasing, joining a group, and keeping up with amateur radio news. and we'll be going through our usual type of thing. Dennis and I will probably have to speak more often to switch places because we don't have this one established as well as we've done our previous ones. So on VHF and UHF, you're mostly limited to a local or regional type of contact. So the people you're going to be talking to are people that you would normally be talking to in your general area. On HF, your scope of contacts can range around the world with many more potential hams to contact. And with this worldwide scope, there's some new challenges. Multiple languages and non-native English speakers, different rules and sometimes band plans in different IARU regions and countries, the concept of DXing as a pursuit, long-distance contacts, and typically DX is also used to refer to contacts with another country other than your local country. So even if it's not that far away, the idea of DXing could also mean a ham outside of your local country. Contesting is much more common on HF than it is on VHF and UHF. Keeping logs of your contacts is something that most HF operators do. It's not done as much on VHF and UHF. And one of the reasons why people log their contacts is you'll get requests for confirmation in the form of QSLing, and we'll talk more about QSLing because it's much more prevalent on HF than it is on VHF and UHF. We're going to switch over to Dennis now.
Okay.
I guess I'm one slide early, but you can go ahead.
Okay. Well, yeah, one of the issues of dealing with a worldwide presence is dealing with multiple languages and non-native English speakers. So it's very important that we use the NATO or the IARU phonetic alphabet so as to not cause confusion. That tends to be a kind of a worldwide standard for communicating. And very important not to use figures of speech or idioms. This can be confusing as well. But it makes having a basic QSO or a ragchew, as we call it, makes it a lot more difficult because you're not necessarily speaking the same language. I will say that a lot of hams worldwide do speak English, and some speak English better than others. It does make it difficult, so you'll find out. But there are lots of resources for this. In fact, I have to share a story that one of my friends, Ken, K6ZTW, wrote an article about communicating with Russian amateurs on CW and giving tips on what to say on CW, which I thought was really wonderful. But yeah, and I suppose, what have you got? You have a link for that, the resources? Yeah, there you go. So here's Anthony's resource list. These are all links to websites. And
yeah, by the way, when you see this font, if you click on it, it'll take you out to that resource.
Yeah. So there's a lot of good information online. Yeah, jargon. Of course, a lot of the jargon is universal. Q codes, things like that, we use internationally. But there is some jargon that we pick up that does lend itself to being able to speak to foreign countries. So there you go. That's good. Okay, yeah, I mentioned Q codes, pro signs, and abbreviations. The pro signs are typically used the pro signs are used in CW. So if you're a CW operator, you're familiar with the pro signs. That he's got a list there displayed right now. Those are all pretty much standard pro signs that we use in CW operation. They're basically contractions or just ways to make things simpler to communicate, like that letter R that means you received the transmission and you received it perfectly. So you'll hear somebody say on Morse code, did-od-it, 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 R, R, R. So that's a very common thing. Wait, did-od-it it is another common one. If you work in CW, these things will just become automatic to you and you'll hear them. So Q signals, of course, the most common one's QTH, your location. QRO, should I increase my power because you can't hear me? QST, that's an attention to everyone. QRS to send slower if you're sending Morse code. QRN and QRM. QRM's a pretty common one we get these days, but anyway, Q signs, Q codes, and pro signs, important stuff, and abbreviations. You've got a link to abbreviations there too. Yes.
Yes, I do.
Oh, those are the same. Those are the.
No,
Oh,
there
there we
they
go.
are.
Okay. Yeah. So when we're talking, not necessarily talking on phone, but on CW, you tend to use abbreviations. And one that caught my eye there was FB. A lot of folks don't understand FB, and FB is a great term. Fine business. That means A-OK, everything's good.
Well, Dennis,
So
I just want to
yeah,
mention
go
one
ahead.
thing. Sometimes different locations tend to use some abbreviations more than others. And when I first started on HFCW, I was surprised by people calling me doctor, DR. I assumed they meant doctor, but I found out later that it meant dear. So it's used much more in Europe than it is in the U.S., but DR you'll hear quite often
For that.
being used as a preface to your name.
Mhm. So we've got a couple of links there from the RSGB on making your first QSO, and that's the exciting one, making your first HF QSO. I remember that day very clearly, 50 some years ago. Whew. But it's amazing. Making your first QSO on HF is wonderful. And HFDXing, there's a nice link that it has here for how you do HFDXing. Oh, let's see. I think you.
Okay,
Oh,
so as far as adapting goes, I mentioned different rules and band plans. They vary from IARU region. There's three IARU regions. The UK is in Region 1, the US is in Region 2, and Australia and Southern Asia are in Region 3. Each of the regions has some different band plans, especially on 40 meters. Also on some of the VHF, UHF transition bands, for example, we do not have 4 meters in Region 2, which you have in Region 1. So knowing the regions is important, but then each individual country may or may not have different privileges and different frequency lists. So you need to make sure that you're operating based on what your country's licensing requirements are. But you need to know what the other ones are. For example, if you're trying to work a Japanese station on 160 and you don't realize that the band plan is different, you'll never find them. So you need to make sure that you know what the band plan is for countries where you're trying to find someone. And I have a link here that has a bunch of rules and regulations for around the world for my website. ITU zones, ITU union information, band plans by activity, written descriptions, frequency list, world time zones, etc., etc. Speaking of time zones, on HF we keep everything in UTC or GMT time so that there's no confusion as to what time of day it is. Also remember, there can be confusion by the day. So here in the United States at UTC midnight, the start of the next day is usually in the Eastern time zone where I'm at, either 8 or 7 p.m. at night. So it really can mean that the day ends before you realize it does. So you need to be aware of those dates and time customs. Having DXing, the ability to work other countries, is a big thing for many HF operators. And finding DX stations. I have a bunch of information on finding DXing news and schedules. Also, the idea of there's different protocols for working DX stations. Why is there different protocols? Because these stations can be quite busy. Thousands and thousands of hams are trying to work these rather rare locations. So DXing with a country that's on all the time, for example, working a country in the U.S. from Great Britain is not that unusual of a DX, but working someone in a very rare location, Nepal or some island in the Pacific or something very rare, means that there's thousands of people trying at the same time. So what the X stations typically do is they will operate in what's referred to as split frequency operation. They will call on one frequency and then listen in a different range of frequencies. So for example, if a CW station says up 1, that means they're going to start listening up 1 kc from where they're at, and they might listen up a few kcs above that. A phone station may say something such as up 5 to 10. That means the range that they're going to be listening in. So it's important to know that you only want to transmit where they're listening, not on their frequency. Also, behavior and manners are very important in DX polyps. With a lot of people trying to get through, people can sometimes impose on others frequencies or try and cut them off. So you want to be kind and courteous. And I would strongly suggest you read the DX Code of Conduct. I have a link to it here. This also applies for not just working DX, but for any amateur radio operation. I will listen and then listen again before calling. I will only call if I can copy the station I'm trying to work, the DX station. So make sure you read through these 13 rules for the DX Code of Conduct. I think you'll find them very enlightening for all types of operations. Let's see, 170.
Anthony, just to interrupt you for a second, on your page with all the links to the IARU, one of the things that you have on there that's another important document that I think everybody needs to read is the Considerate Operator's Guide. That's just right up there that's good information right there.
And there's actually a couple different ones, but this one tells you what part of the band is used for different things. So yes, and there's also a non-DXers. There's various forms of that DX code that are also used for amateur radio codes. So those are both very important also.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's turn it over to you now, Dennis, for page number 74. Actually, I'm sorry, I have contesting.
You had that, yeah. I'm looking at the chart here. Yeah, okay. It's still yours.
Okay, so contesting is a form of competition. Amateur radio contesting is very popular with some people, and I have a video here that I did for the Rat Pack group, an introduction to amateur radio contesting, and there's also a slideshow to go along with it. I also have a link here for the beginner's guide to contesting from the RSGB site, so you can click on this link for more information. But basically in contesting, it really comes down to trying to work as many stations as possible, and there's often multipliers or bonuses for working different types of stations. So for example, a contest may have all the U.S. states as multipliers. Each state gives you an additional multiplier and gives you more credit, so you try and work all the different states. Some contests base their multipliers on zones, some base it on the countries, some might base it on different bands. So there's a whole lot to contesting, and it's way beyond going into for today. The next thing I want to talk a little bit about is logging requirements. Logging requirements in the U.S. Were required by the FCC for hams up until the late 70s. Since then, it's been optional to log, at least in the United States. In most countries, it is optional to keep a log now. There still are some countries that require it. But in order to maintain an HF presence, to be able to create QSL confirmations, chase awards, etc., most active HF operators keep a log of all of their contacts. A typical log includes the date, frequency, mode, power, time, the station's call sign that you worked, a signal report, and notes to go along with that. Maybe their name, their location, etc. And I have a whole presentation on logging software, because most of the logging nowadays is not done on paper anymore. It's done with computer logs. And I have a whole thing here. It touches on paper logging to start off, but then it goes through the whole idea of logging software for both general logging and for contesting. And the contesting one also talks some about contest logging. Online logs or electronic logs were actually started by contesters because it was a way to be faster and more efficient. The next section we want to talk about is QSL cards, and this is just some of the QSL cards in my collection. A QSL card is basically a postcard or an image of a postcard that confirms that I talked to a location. So originally the Q sign QSL meant, with a question mark, QSL meant, can you confirm that you copied me? And if I would ask someone for a written confirmation, that's where the whole idea of QSL cards started. And this actually started back in the early 1900s. And the question is, are QSL cards still a thing? Who uses QSL cards? Many people still send paper QSL cards. Although they're not nearly as widely used, they are still useful and also attractive to collect. Radio amateurs, many transmitting ham radio operators, particularly those using the HF band, send them regularly. But many operators also use electronic means of QSLing. So this slide has the AWL basics of paper QSLing. Then it has information on the RSGB QSL Bureau of a way that you can send out paper cards via the Bureau Bureau is spelled B-U-R-O is the abbreviation, as opposed to the actual spelling of bureau. That goes back to the CW shortcuts that people do. And this talks about how you can distribute cards without using the postal service for each individual card. The cards are bulk loaded and sent off to countries as packages to save on postal cost. But the bureaus, whether it's the RSG Bureau, the ARRL Bureau, tend to be rather slow. And a lot of hams have now moved on to using electronic means. And I have a whole presentation here on QSLing in an electronic, in an online world about electronic and still some different ways to do paper QSLing. So you can go through that slideshow also. Here's an example of my current QSL and a previous QSL card. As I mentioned in earlier sessions, I volunteer for a scenic railway. Actually, I'll be on the train tomorrow, volunteering as a trainman. Unfortunately, we only have the steam engine a couple times a year, usually for about 3 weekends, but we will have diesel as we usually do. And this is two of Dennis's cards. Dennis, go ahead.
Yeah, that's my novice card from 1970 when I was first licensed in 1969. That was a card that I made up, and actually, the story behind this: my mother went to a little print shop that was in the neighborhood, and it was she decided she was going to get QSL cards made for me, and so that's what they came up with the little kind of like a Dr. Seuss character there, which I got a big kick out of back in high school days. Then this is my current QSL card here in Inyokern, where we live in the desert. So I'd still do a lot of QSLing. I know a lot of folks don't send QSL cards out, but I like receiving them as much as I like sending them out to people to confirm contacts. One of the things to note on this QSL card is one of the things that I like about my QSL card that I learned a long time ago as a kid. When you're DXing, put all the information on the front of the card. So when it's in, you typically display your cards in something like what I've got here, this plastic display thing that just has got a bunch of cards in it. So the observer, you're sitting there observing the QSL card, all the information about the QSO is right there on the front of the card. You don't have to take the card out and turn it over and look at it. It's all right on the front. So I like doing it like that. That's a little different way to do it than a lot of folks do.
And you can see behind me an example of QSL card holders. That card holder actually holds 400 cards. Each of those plastic sheets has 40 cards in it, and they all spit that. They're on little arms that circle back through, so you can go through them. Dennis is holding up an example there of a QSL card.
These guys here. Yeah.
And speaking of weather, I am now in the middle of a thunderstorm in my area, so I've disconnected all antennas, and hopefully I won't lose power here.
Hopefully you won't lose power. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So it's still a little bit out in the distance, but it's coming up on me here. So the next thing that you can do for your QSL, for your HF presence, is the whole idea of QRZ.com. Now, when most people think of QRZ.com, they think of it as a place where they can find call signs. So if I put Dennis's call sign in here, I would see information that tells me his name, his post office box, his address. But there's also another part to both his page and my page, and that is what QRZ.com refers to as the bio portion of the page. And this is a part that each of you, by claiming your own personal QRZ page, there's no cost for this. You don't need to be a member. You don't have to pay a fee. You can go in and claim your own QRZ.com page, and then you can put in your biography with links, pictures, etc. I have a way for people to do a search and find out whether I'm in their log, whether they're in my log. The most recent stations I work shows up here, and some other information. So you can do this by claiming your station. And again, I have a bunch of information on that in the QRZ. I'm sorry, in the logging software page, and also in the QSLing presentation. Clublog is another place where you can share information. Mostly this is used quite a bit by DXers and contesters, but it's a way that you can go in and find out whether you are in a person's log or not. So even if you're going to send out a QSL card, before you spend the money and time involved, you might want to check to see whether you're in their log. So you can go in here and you can do a search. Now, you won't find everyone because not everyone uploads their log to Club Log, but a lot of the most popular DXpeditions and DXers upload their information. So I can simply go in here and I can do a search through here to find a station. So let's say I want to see whether I work the Fox Tango for Gloriosa Island, the expedition. I can click on this and it'll show me, yes, I am in the log, and I can even request a QSL card. I can request a paper QSL card from here. I can request one via the Bureau. I can request it directly depending on the station. There might be a fee involved, but the fee can be paid via PayPal. So Club Log is a great way if you're getting involved in DXing to find out whether you're in people's logs or not. You can also get an easy chart here of your current DX situation after you upload your logs. Again, you need to have electronic logs to be able to do this, but once you have that, it's very easy to upload those from your logging software, and you can see all the stations, all the countries you've worked and verified, etc., and the ones you haven't worked. So you can see that I still have not worked Anadama and Nicobar Islands, and I've not worked Bangladesh, I've not worked Bhutan, but I've worked a lot of other places, but you'll see that there's still some pink in there, including North Korea. So that's QRZ.com and Club Log. You can also have a personal web page with information on it. One of the things on QRZ that's very important, I forgot to mention, is when you go in here and look at this, there's detailed information that shows their county, their grid square. It also shows their ITU zone, but it also shows will they QSL via standard mail, will they via EQSL or Logbook of the World, and you can choose all these. So again, you need to go in and claim your QRZ page so you can go in and fill out that information. And I think, well, this is an example. I had a screenshot in case I couldn't get to it. And here's a screenshot of the Club Log information. And again, there's more information on Club Log and QRZing, QRZ.com in the QSLing in an online world presentation. Okay, Dennis.
Right. I just got my Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Anthony.
I've actually worked. I actually did work it. I have not gotten the card to confirm it yet.
I just got the QSL, so it's pretty neat. That's a rare one. All right, modes, and more modes. Well, we've talked a lot in the past about different modes. You know, talking about phone and CWs, those types of modes, and digital modes in general. But we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about some of those things. But as we say here, a lot of hams do limit their HF operating to one mode. I did that for the longest time. I only operated on CW for years when I first got licensed. Then I decided to get into some other things. Today, it's hard for me to get on sideband because my hearing's bad. And so it's really tough for me sometimes to copy sideband if it's a weak signal. So I look at other modes, digital modes, for instance, that I don't have to really listen to it, but I like doing teletype and things like that. So the suggestion, use all modes. They're all available, and you may find something that you really, really, really like. And I've gone through that over the years, trying different modes and trying different types of operating techniques and things. So like we say here, by exploring those other modes, you can increase your opportunities to work additional contacts, work the rare DX. And a lot of times these days, you'll find that a lot of the rare DX, the DXpeditions are focusing on the digital modes like FT8 and FT4. So yeah, get that missing state for worked all states. Yeah, I'm still working on worked all states for 6 meters. That's the one I'm after now. But the modes we're going to talk, well, this talks about the modes that are available for HF bands, and of course 160 being a medium frequency band, 160 through 12 meters, and we have omitted 10 meters because basically 10 meters it's very similar to the VHF bands, like your 4 meters and 2 meters and things like that. Voice is primarily single sideband, but there is a small group of us, and I happen to be one of those, that like to play on AM, and AM, it's just a wonderful mode to play on. It doesn't have the punch that sideband does. If you're in a noisy situation, AM can be very difficult. A lot of folks like to call it ancient modulation because it is kind of outdated, but it's still a lot of fun. It's high fidelity, and it's amazing to hear stations on AM. I actually use some repurposed AM broadcast transmitters to get on AM on the amateur bands. Below 10 meters, there's no FM and there are no repeaters, but there are repeaters in FM on 10 meters. So you can search that out. And of course, we've talked about Morse code, CW, continuous wave, the digital modes. The traditional digital mode, which is the one that I love, is radio teletype. And I'm actually in the process right now. I was going to move it in here. I ran out of time today, but I'm in the process of restoring an old teletype machine, a Model 19 teletype that I've had for many, many years, but needs to be restored because it's gotten a little worn out. Some of the newer modes are mainly FT8 and FT4, but PSK is another weak signal digital mode that kind of predated FT8. And FT8, I think, has kind of taken over from PSK, and there's a couple of different modes of PSK. It started out as what they called PSK 31, phase shift keying, and I believe the 31 was the bandwidth, if I'm not mistaken, 31 hertz bandwidth. So these are digital, like almost like, well, FT8 is not really keyboard to keyboard, but teletype, radio teletype, and PSK are keyboard to keyboard. So you're actually carrying on a conversation like you'd be texting on your phone, but it's keyboard to keyboard comms. In addition to that type of communications, we've got image modes like slow scan television. So slow scan television, you send a still image, a still like a photograph, over an HF channel, the voice channel, voice bandwidth, and it's done by scanning this, like I said, slow scan. So it takes a while. It can take up to like 8 seconds to send a color photograph across a voice channel on sideband. Hellschreiber is an interesting one. It's keyboard to keyboard, but it's more like facsimile, the way that it produces the end product. Whereas teletype, you actually have it looks like a typewriter. You're typing on something that looks like a typewriter, and it has a typing bail that actually prints on paper on the real teletype machine. Hellschreiber is another thing that scans. It has a raster scan to it, and it creates characters with the scan. So it's kind of like I think of it as like, if you've been around home computing from the very early days, it's the kind of displays that we had back in the old days of doing character displays for the early home computers, where it's just like uppercase characters. So that's Hellschreiber, and that's kind of a popular mode amongst people. It's an interesting one, and of course these days you can do it with software. You don't need the Hellschreiber machine to be able to send Hellschreiber data. So, go ahead. So since the CW, the Morse code requirement's been dropped, most hams start out on SSB or digital on HF. Of course, in spite of that, lots and lots of hams are still interested in learning and operating on CW. It's still a fascinating mode, and it's a lot of fun. And of course, we have links previously in the presentation, and I think you probably have one coming up here to talk about if you're interested in CW.
Yes.
With places like Long Island CW Club and what have you. But a lot of newer hams get interested in it for the very reason that it makes a station very portable. So you can do low power QRP portable operations in contesting and what have you, running low power. So CW from that standpoint is very, very popular. Why do we do CW? Because it's with weak signals, we have a much better chance of making a contact than we do with single sideband. Single sideband is very susceptible to noise because it takes up some bandwidth. With CW, you can narrow the bandwidth down, which reduces the noise in the passband, so it's easier to copy the signal. So you can copy weak signals. Poor antenna is what I consider, rather than calling it a poor antenna, I consider what I call a compromise antenna. If you're in a compromised situation, CW is really great for that. You can, again, running QRP, running low power, running with a compromised antenna, it's much easier to make contacts that way. And of course, as I mentioned, portable operation, QRP portable operation, even not so QRP portable operations like we talked about on field day, running 100-watt transmitters and running CW. It's a lot of fun on field day, low power QRP. Okay, and it's also an additional mode for contesting, which means in a lot of cases, like in the case of field day here, we get different scoring if we can contact the same station on the same band on different modes. We can contact them on CW, we can contact them on phone, and we can contact them on a digital mode. And all three of those count with the same station on the same band. So that's a uh, one advantage of adding CW to adding Morse code to your toolbox. So yeah, you've got the presentation on Morse code, and yeah, it is fun. To describe it in a word, learning Morse code and operating CW is fun, and there's just no two ways about it. Uh, so there's no right way to learn it. A lot of folks have tried a lot of different things over the years. Um, and I definitely agree with this. Learn the characters by their distinct sounds and not dits and das. In other words, recognize the pattern. If you happen to be a musician, this is second nature. It's wonderful if you're a musician. The Morse code comes very easily because you recognize the patterns of the dots and dashes, the dits and das. So you start learning the individual letters that way, the characters. You want to when you start out, you want to learn the characters being sent at a higher speed, but at the rate of the characters slowly. So again, it has to do with recognizing the nature of the sound, that distinct sound of that character at speed will make an impression, and you'll recognize that character immediately. Whereas if you're sending it at a very, very low speed, it's not so easy to recognize it. So a lot of the really good techniques for learning Morse code. One of the ones, I don't know if I don't remember that you talked about this, Anthony, or not in the chart, but we used to call it the Farnsworth method, where the characters are sent at a low rate of 5 words per minute, but the characters themselves, the actual character, is sent at a much higher speed, like 18 words a minute. So it makes it real easy to pick that up very quickly. But you don't want to count the dots and dashes, the dits and dots. That doesn't work. You want to learn it by listening to it. They give you learn. I remember the ARRL book, Learning the Radio Telegraph Code. And it says, build a code practice oscillator, take your key, and start learning how to send code. Well, that's not a good way to learn Morse code. You want to be listening to it. You want to learn how to send it. I mean, that's important, but it's not how to learn the code. You want to learn how to send the code, but not learn the code by sending it. You want to learn the code by listening to it. So this idea of the characters being sent at a higher speed, so you recognize the sound, the rhythm of the code. That's the way to do it. And of course, once you've got it, get on the air and start practicing. And there's plenty of folks out there who will send it at lower speeds for folks starting out. They'll work right along with you to do that. There's lots of organizations that are involved with learning code. I mentioned Long Island CW Club. This is a great place to learn Morse code. They have online sessions. It's all done online. Weekly, they've got literally 100+ sessions going on every week for all different levels of skill. So if you're a beginner, they've got beginner classes where you just do a couple of letters at a time or a couple of characters at a time, and you learn those characters and you move on. So they grow your library of characters, your alphabet. Wonderful way to do it.
And speaking of the classes, they have classes also that are designed for different times around the world. And there's specifically a class that meets for Great Britain time and for Australian time, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, that's a great Long Island CW group. I can't say enough about that group. They do a wonderful job. CW Academy, I've not dealt with them that much. I think you have, Anthony.
Yes, I have a little bit. And then there's also a group in the UK, the Essex CW Amateur Radio Club, that does Morse training. And you can find out more about that through the link. These two links on the next page are presentations that the Long Island CW group and the CW Operators group did for the Rat Pack group. So you can watch a 1-hour presentation on both of them from the Rat Pack group.
Yeah, I remember we had CW Ops on Rat Pack. So I like one of the things that I belong actually I no longer belong to them. I've got to renew my membership, but my shirt here, Fists, which is another CW Morse code club, and so I've got my Fists shirt on today for that reason. Uh, so digital modes,
That's me.
is that you?
Yep.
Oh, okay, you
So
got it.
most digital modes on HF today are accomplished by using a computer and sound card, and often called sound card modes. But there are still methods, as Dennis mentioned, for doing RTTY using both hardware and other software using FSK and other things. But for the two most popular modes, FT8 and FT4, they have remarkable performance with very weak signals. They're great for suboptimal antennas, home restricted antenna setups. They're great for low power radios. There's no mic fright involved, so I find these very useful for working with youth. They're used to clicking on things on the computer screen, and they are quite hesitant to talk because not only do they not talk on the phone because they only text, being on the microphone is also sort of scary for them because they know they'll be identified as a young person. So you might really want to think about digital modes when you're working with youth. CW also is interest to them, but it requires a little bit more learning. Although they're called sound card modes, the real magic actually occurs in the computer and its software, and the sound card simply acts as a means to transfer the data in and out of the radio and computer. And on the next page I have a little diagram here. You can have a radio that has a built-in sound card, or you can have a radio that you add an external sound card interface to them. Once you have that radio with sound card ability, you can interface it to a computer, and then installing some software will let you perform a number of different modes of operation. So these are free programs. W6DQ gives you FT8 and FT4, JT65, Whisper, etc. The program called FLDigi gives you PSK, RTTY, CW, Hellscriber, and a bunch of other modes. If you add a piece of paid software that's actually a software modem, that actually gives you an additional thing called VARA or VAR. And VARA is used quite a bit in emergency communications, WinLink, VARA chat, VARA images. These are all ways that you can send information using a sound card interface computer with a software modem. So it's not a piece of hardware, but it's actually another piece of software. If you're interested in any of these modes, there's a whole slideshow and a presentation on FT8 and FT4 that goes into a lot greater detail. For information on the individual software I talked about on the previous slide, W6DQ, FLDigi, VARA, WinLink Express, and VARA AC are available. And I am going to switch over to Dennis here, and I'm actually going to get out of my seat for a few seconds and go close the window where the rain is coming in, so I'll be right back.
All right. So I'm going to go back to image modes now and talk about the image modes. And I mentioned before slow scan television. This is really an interesting thing on HF because this has been around for many, many, many years. It is a method of sending reasonable quality photographic images of monochrome or color. We do have color formats these days, using a single voice channel and typically using a single sideband radio on the HF bands. So we use the vision, as the name implies, slow scan. I mentioned that it scans the image and picks up the different colors and the intensities and what have you of the image as it scans it, and it converts that into basically an audio tone that is modulated depending on the color and the intensity of the image or the signal. So we modulate that, and we send in the case of slow scan, you send a sync pulse on every line. So you'll very, very distinctive sounding signal on HF if you run across it. When you hear the slow scan television on SSB, you can hear that sync pulse very regularly, and that's how you can identify a slow scan television image. But we frequency modulate the audio carrier, so that way we can use it on any sideband radio. We can make that work. So you've got to the RL's slow scan TV page. Now in the old days, we didn't have computers to do this. We used, in fact, I did some of this using a long persistence cathode ray tube, a long persistence CRT, where it would paint the image on the screen and it would retain it. until you erase it and send a new image. So that was in the early days of it, back when I was first on the air, when I was playing with that. But this is an interesting one. The ISS, the International Space Station, does regularly send slow scan images, and you can pick those up. Generally, they're on 2 meters. Are they? I don't know. I don't think they're sending anything on HF, but generally they're on 2 meters. But it's real easy to pick up. And what you can do is
sync information at 1200.
And actually, Dennis, this will just give you a quick view of it here. Let me turn the volume up just a little bit.
My picture information between 1200 and 2300 hertz. If you push this magnifying glass, it'll pop open. Just another one to try.
So you can hear that. You can hear the signal.
I believe this to mean that the radio equipment is on the Columbus side of the space station using the Kenwood radio. You can run it in the auto and it will detect. So I'm just going to pause here for a minute. We'll come back towards the.
But you can watch the whole video on your own, but I just want to give you a quick little view of what it looked like and what it sort of sounds like.
Yeah, if you hear that funny noise on 20 meters around 14,235, that's what you're listening to, is slow scan television. So Hellschreiber, here's an example. I described it before as how it's kind of like a facsimile machine, very similar to that. It was an early text transmission mode, one of the early popular modes, like teletype, like facsimile. Hellschreiber, a line of printed text is scanned in, and in the same method, it's used to modulate a carrier, so that you get a change in pitch, which signifies that it's a white space or a black space on the image, depending on what the tone is, and then it'll paint that back out at the other end. Now, doing this with computers is really easy. In the old days, they used things like thermal paper to do this, to do Hellschreiber. But today it's easy with a computer. The computer makes it very, very simple to capture the image and put it up on the screen. So, I kind of miss those old days of using the original modes with the thermal paper and with the teletype, having to change ribbons, having to change a roll of paper out of a machine and all that. Oh, I'm trying to get that going again. So portable operation, again, expanding your playground. You may start out in a home shack, but if you have limitations on what you can do in your home, maybe you want to go portable, because you can do a lot more things in a portable operation if you don't have the space at home or are not in a good situation with having a space to put up antennas and what have you at your home. So lots of great opportunities being portable. You can find some really great locations. In fact, I was commenting in our chat here when you were showing your Norfolk Amateur Radio Club by the seaside. I was just drooling over that image, the aerial image of y'all sitting there by the water. That's just wonderful. That's good fun to do things like that. But besides portable, you can go mobile. You can install an HF radio in your vehicle and operate while in motion. And I've been doing mobile operations since I was pretty much first licensed. I think I actually had a CW rig in my car when I was a novice that I played with, which was pretty nuts. But I've had mobile rigs in my cars ever since then. So it's fun to do mobile. Portable activities, parks on the air. So these are things like national parks, SOTAs, summits on the air. And this is very, very specific rules about what constitutes a summit, and folks are out there trying to collect summits, and both as I can't think of the terminology right now. Again, Anthony, you probably have a chart on this, but you have somebody sitting up on the summit
Mountain
and you got
goats.
chasing them. What's that?
Mountain goats, and there's all sorts of terms. I don't remember all the terms because I don't.
On
There's not a lot of summits here in Ohio, although there is one not too far away from me. But we're talking about 1,200, about 1,300 feet, not 10,000 feet.
Yeah, we got lots of summits here where we are. We got one that's 10,000 feet that's just a few miles away here. So yeah, we've got lots of summits, lots of popular places. Islands on the Air is another wonderful one. IOTA lot of islands designated as islands on the air. And you'll see that if you're into DXing, a lot of that stuff pops up all the time.
And
We
in
talked
July,
about
there will be an Islands on the Air contest coming up where people go out and do that. So look for that coming up. And I think 3 weeks from now, there'll be the Islands on the Air contest.
So RSGB and ARRL all have their field days, which we just had. Wonderful opportunities to get out and be portable, run off of portable, emergency power, run off of portable power sources. It's just good fun to do that. And it really does expand your playground, and you learn a lot of not a lot of new tools to put in your toolbox to be able to do that. How do you operate portable? What things do you need to do that? What are you going to take with you? Um, you make a list and check it off as you go through it, so you don't forget stuff. What was the last
Yes,
one you had
I'm
that
sorry.
was contesting roving? Yeah, roving doesn't really apply. We don't really do HA. Roving really applies to VHF more than VHF contesting, more than HF contesting, because we're not looking at grid square multipliers in HF contests, but in
Actually,
roving.
they do county roving is what they do for HF for the
Yeah,
state
that's
parties.
right. You're right. The county hunters, that's another type of contest, like working all states, working DXCC. County hunters isn't it? You're right. I didn't think about that, but yeah, I got folks that rove to get the different counties that are rare and not necessarily on the air very often. Go ahead. So DXpeditions, this is kind of the ultimate portable operation, and there's two sides to this. One is you can be the DXpedition and go to some remote, rare location, uh, or you can just try and chase the DXpeditions, which is what I choose to do these days. Chasing the DX as these guys go out. These folks spend literally tens of thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of pounds to put on these operations. They have many sponsors that provide them with funding to be able to get to some remote location, like Glorioso, which we mentioned a little while ago. Glorioso is a little different situation. He was working there, so it was kind of a natural thing for him to do that. But things like Bouvet last year was a well-funded DXpedition that literally spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to make that happen. So the thing that's cool about this is you can make this into like a vacation or a DXpedition of your own to go to some place. It doesn't have to be rare. It's just some other location other than your home QTH and get
So
on the air.
any of the islands off the main coast of Great Britain, of course, provide you with some possibilities. Things like the Isle of Wight, Guernsey. There's a number of different islands
Yeah,
close by that
right.
you can easily take a 1 day little trip out to, or maybe a weekend, or maybe a week, and operate. I've never been able to do a separate. Well, I did go to Virgin Islands once and operate from there. But what I've done here more in the U.S. is my DXpeditions have actually been to different states that are rare, like Delaware, West Virginia, and Maine. So it can be a relaxed vacation DXpedition, or it can be an intensive, uh, difficult location.
That's true. And actually, I've done a little bit of what you're talking about. Going camping is wonderful. If you're going out on a camping in your caravan or in your tent, take a radio along and set up a portable antenna. That's good fun to do that. So I mentioned mobile operating before. Mobile, having a station in your vehicle so you can operate. It is much easier on the HF bands than 6 meters while you're in motion, I will say. And I personally run 40 meters primarily on my mobile station. And I have a lot of fun with that. I'm running a 100-watt, a little ICOM IC7000, 100-watt radio with a single band 40-meter antenna. And I tend to stick around the same location on that band. And I have a lot of fun with that. And it's great when you're on the road traveling. Uh, so it's nice that you can do that when you're in motion, but some folks take it a little bit more extreme. They have something that you have to put up in the air rather than your radio's in the car, but you put up some structure to support the antenna, maybe a tilt over mast on the top of your van or something that you might have. Uh, Things like being able to put up a portable push-up mast you can have attached to your car. You're not going to drive with that in the air, but once you park, you can operate mobile at rest with a decent antenna, and that makes a good portable station, a good mobile station. This is fun. You can use fixed antennas like a dipole or what have you, vertical antenna. But being able to operate while you're actually in motion that's pretty cool. It's pretty fun, a lot of fun to do that. Uh, Long distance communication from an HF mobile can be difficult. I will tell you that I've worked DX on 40 meters on sideband from my mobile station running 100 watts. And if the station at the other end, the DX station, has a good station, in fact, working Australia from here in California on 40 meters in the morning is not difficult. But one of my HF mobile contacts with Australia, he had a 2-element wire beam pointed at the States, so it made it a lot easier for me to talk to him, and that was pretty good. So we've got a bunch of links here for different ideas about mobile radio operations, mobile amateur radio operation. Um, yeah, mobile radio articles. ARRL used to publish a book, which is probably still around. It has a lot of good information in it. I don't think they publish it anymore, but it was the Mobile Operating Guide, is what they called it. And I've got that in my library. A lot of good information on that. So I think that's it for
Yeah, I'll
me.
take over now. So competitive activities and awards. I already talked a little bit about contesting above, but there's also other type of awards, and these are not necessary awards you get like a contest finishing first or second or third place. These are more achievement type awards where you accumulate things. So award chasing in amateur radio is often called paper chasing because you get certificates for doing certain things. So the ARRL has a number of awards you can go for. The Worked All States, Worked All Continents, DXCC, which I'll talk a little bit about in a few moments here. The RSGB also has a variety of HF awards, and you can click on the link to go out and find out more about those type of awards. The IAR Regional Awards, Commonwealth Century Awards, ITU Zones, Worked All Continents, etc. There's also Worked Great Britain Awards. CQ has a number of awards, even though CQ magazine is still not is no longer operating. Their awards are still being maintained by other organizations. So there's a Worked All Zones and the DX Marathon, and there's many other types of competitive award chasing activities out there. So probably two of the biggest ones are the DXCC. This is sponsored by the ARRL, and you work 100 or more different countries. Now, countries is really stretching it. They're more accurately described as entities. And the reason for this is some were historically countries but are now parts of another country, but they still get separate credit. So for example, Alaska and Hawaii count as separate DX entities than the US, even though they are states now since the 1950s. And of course, you have some things, similar things with Scotland, Northern Ireland, etc., that are part of the Commonwealth but are separate entities on this list. There's also something called the Worked All Europe Awards, and those are by the DARC in Germany. They're very similar to the DXCC list for Europe, but there's about 5 or 6 additional countries, including the Italian African islands, European Turkey, not the Orkneys, I'm going to forget the name of it now. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but there's a few other countries on that list. The DX Marathon is very similar to DXCC, but what it is, instead of being a lifetime award, this is a once-a-year competition. So from January 1st to December 31st, you try and work as many countries and CQ zones as possible in 1 year on any band, including all of the HF bands and 6 meters, and it restarts each year so you can get awards. And I have a whole slideshow on it and a video presentation on it. It's great if you're just starting out because the competition means that you'll drive towards that first 100, but it's also really good if you have 300 plus and you have to wait a real long time to get a new country to come on the air. This means every year every country's new, at least for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Now, the next thing I'm going to pass over to Dennis.
Clubs, yes. Join a club. Of course, we're speaking to you at your club meeting here, but amateur radio clubs, societies, and associations, very important. You've got local clubs that are, and of course, this is based on different interests, activities, and locations. The meetings may be online like we're doing here. They might be in person. Definitely look for clubs, local clubs, through the Club Finder, RSGB Club Finder. We have a similar thing here in the States with the ARRL, finding local clubs. Makes it much easier to find a club in your area if you're new, especially new to ham radio, and you want to meet somewhere in person. It's a good way to find local clubs.
There's also one on the QRZ website, and you can go here and find countries. These are mostly U.S. countries, but there are some DX ones here also.
Yeah, it's a good one. So national societies like the RSGB, so Radio Society of Great Britain, American Radio Relay League, Radio Amateurs Canada, these are all national organizations. The IARU, which we've spoken of a few times, is an international organization with over 160 countries contributing that. And this is where we set some of the agreements. The IARU are able to set some of the agreements in terms of band plans and things like that in the different regions, the 3 IARU regions. So this is a great organization, and what they do, we all benefit from that. So it's an important one.
And there is no membership in the IARU. Right. You simply join your national organization, and they represent you in the IARU.
Yeah, the national organizations are represented at the IARU. This is how that works.
Now, there's some other types of clubs also, specialty clubs. These are clubs that are special interests. So DXing, contesting. I'm a QRP operator, which means low power. And if you click on any of these links, it'll bring you out to information on that. So these are a bunch of low power clubs. One of the 2 biggest ones in the world is the GQRP club. It's located in the UK, but it's actually a worldwide group. And the QRP ARCI, which is located in the United States, but again, another worldwide group. There's also contesting clubs, DXing clubs. AMSAT is an example of a specialty club for satellite operators. There's also specialty clubs based on band and mode. The 1010 International promotes operation on 10 meters. SMERC is the 6 meter international club. There's CW clubs, there's AM clubs, etc. Now, with all this different things we've been talking about, it's helpful if you keep up with news about amateur radio. And I have a presentation I did for Rat Pack. You can go through the slideshow, you can watch the video. This has over 250 links in it, so I can warn you ahead of time. It's going to be a bunch of things you're going to find that you might want to tune into to find out news about specific areas of amateur radio or amateur radio in general. I also have some news resource collections on my website, DX News and Schedules, with a bunch of DX organizations. I also have one on general news, contesting news, propagation. So this is contesting, propagation, and spotting. These are ways that you can tell the stations you're going to be on. This also tells you how different bands are to see how active particular bands are to different spots in the world, including both current conditions and predicted conditions. These are DX news. This one right here is very interesting. The NG3K site has something called ADXO. It stands for Announced DX Operations, and it tells you about major DXpeditions around the world. So you can see in June we had a few, but in July, St. Martin's is on the air. Someone operating portable. I just worked him this morning. The Maldives are going to be on with a Austrian operator. St. Pierre and Miquelon, FP off the coast of Canada, the French possession in the North America is going to be on. These are all activities that are going to be on during July. They tell you the times, the call signs they're going to be using, the stations that are in charge of the particular DXpedition, and also some other notes about them. They also have a very similar thing for announced contest operations. When you click on contest, now it'll tell you who's going to be on during the RSGB IOTA contest, Islands on the Air. There'll be more as we get closer to the event because it's still a month away, but you'll see here some of the different things that are going to be going on with different islands. They also have the island abbreviations here, and you can see what's going to be on from there. So that's the NG3K site. There's also this nice little timeline. It's just a snapshot for the month of major de-expeditions that are going on during July. So you can see here the one in Greenland is still going on, the one at Fox Papa, and different ones that are going on during the time frame. You can click on these for more details. It tells you that's American Samoa. This one is going to be in Cyprus. Going to be one in Cook Islands, etc. You can find out more about those. And finally, the ARRL puts out a bulletin on a weekly basis with announced the expeditions going on during that week. As far as contesting goes, there's a contest calendar from WA7BNM called the Contest Calendar. This has just an enormous number of contests on it. This is probably the biggest resource. So if you want to find out what contests are going on this week, you can click on the 8-day and you can see what contests are going on. So the Venezuelan Independence Day, a Turkish VHF-UHF contest, the Marconi Memorial HF contest, and so forth. You can go through and see what's going to be on the week after and the week after that and so forth. Or you can go through and find 12 months, perpetual calendars, state QSO parties, CW only contests, QRP only contests, etc., etc. There's a presentation on this by Bruce that he did for the Rat Pack, so you can watch the video. He also talks about the 3830 website, and 3830 is what's called a contest score rumor site. So after each event, people can go on here and they can post their scores that they think they've gotten by going through this form, and then the information shows up. So you don't have to wait until the contest results are announced to get some idea of what's going on. Now, of course, not everyone does this, and they're not official, but you can get an idea of the general activity and the high scores during a contest. This was the contest this last weekend. I haven't put my score in here yet, but it looks like I'm going to be between 30 and 9,000, so I'm in third place right now for the single op, but we'll see how that goes over time. The ARRL puts out a contest update bi-weekly, and I also have a contest news webpage. So we're down to the end, but we just want to remind you that we have one document that you can share with your local club, with your friends. It's at this tiny.cc BGHF VHF UK. This will give you one document that goes through and gives all the beginner's guides to HF in the UK that Dennis and I have been presenting each of the weeks. These are some previous recordings we've done for other groups. You can also get the slideshow from here. Also the same thing with VHF and UHF that I did with Marty, although it's not specific to the UK, so this is the US version of it. And then finally, the links to all the things we've showed today in this slideshow are available at tiny.cc/UKBGHF. You can shoot the QR code here or type in this shortcut. I'll bring this up at the very end. And also my contact information, Dennis's contact information, and information from the Rat Pack group, but with both Dennis and I are committee members for, and your group will be presenting at Rat Pack coming up in July. So David and Tammy will be telling you details over the next session about when they're going to be presenting. If you want to stay up really late, it's at 0100 UTC, so you'll have to stay up a little bit later than usual if you want to watch it live. But the good news is all of these are recorded. If you go out to the link, there's over 390 presentations that have already been recorded. Each one of them has a YouTube video, all the documents available. About half to a third of them are on emergency communications. The other ones are on general operation of amateur radio. And I also have a presentation list of my own at tiny.cc/K8ZT-P. This has all the presentations I've done with links to everything. And if you'd like a presentation for a local group, I'd be happy to do one for you. And I'll bring this back and leave the slide on this so you can get to all the slides for our slideshow. So that's it for session number 4. Dennis, final words?
Wow, this has been this has been great, and hopefully some of you will get out there and get on HF if you haven't been on HF. Please take the time to do that. And, if you don't have an HF station, but you've got HF privileges, seek someone out who will let you use their station to get on the air. We do have visitors come by here periodically to our station to get on the air. We've hosted a few folks here getting on the air for the first time, and it's always wonderful to do that. It makes it all worthwhile. So
If you're ever visiting Northeast Ohio, I'm on the opposite end of the state from Dayton, unfortunately. You're welcome to contact me and stop in at my station. Or if you're out in the deserts of Southern California,
Yep.
Dennis's station is always available for guests also. So we'll turn this back to Tammy and David.
If you happen to be in Southern California skiing, we're kind of like close to the ski areas, to tell you the truth. So we always love having visitors here. So do get in contact if you're going to be in the area. We'll set something up. That's great.
It's very kind.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm refraining from mentioning. You mentioned skiing. We've almost got the weather for it here, but no, I said I wasn't going to mention the weather anymore. Anyway, both of you, thank you very much. It's been a big marathon session. I think I mentioned last week when I saw that Roger had booked you for 4 separate sessions on HF Beginners. I thought, really, is there that much information on it? But you've proven there really is. And as I said earlier as well, although you've titled it HF for Beginners, actually there's been a lot there that I'm sure all of us have picked up. So thank you very much for that. Now, this is an opportunity for you at home, if you haven't already done so, and you want to ask a question or make a comment or anything, or share an experience or anything with Anthony and Dennis, this is the time to do it. Otherwise, we'll be letting them go and a well-earned break. I was going to mention something that I saw. You said about the QRZ.com, and this isn't. Excuse me. This is something which not everybody finds easy and straightforward to do. Do you have any tips to make it look good? I know one of our members recently, Martin, G7UGB, she said, "Can you ask anybody if they've got a way of making my QRZ page stand out and look good?" We didn't actually have any takers on that. So have you two got any tips on that?
Well, one thing is definitely make sure you get your page. And the way you do that is you go to QRZ and you register. So when you first register for it, you'll get an account on there. And again, there's no charge for that. Once you've done that, then you can go into your page and you can edit the page. And I would suggest putting a picture there, of course, but the biography can include things like your QSL card, links to your website if you have a website, details about your operating. You can embed things. You notice these iframes here, both of these iframes. One is club log and one is my current log on QRZ, so people can see if they're in the log or what stations I've worked. These are all things you can do. It works like a web page, but then also make sure that you go in and put in the details about your call sign and date. One of the things I really strongly suggest you do is check your grid square to make sure that it's accurate.
That's correct.
Because
yes.
your grid square can be based on your home address, or sometimes it's based on your local post office location. So make sure your grid square is correct. Make sure your ITU zone, your CQ zone, make sure all of that is correct for your location. Make sure you say which kind of QSL card you'll accept. These are all things you can do that I would suggest you do. And then once you do that, if you want to keep a log here, I wouldn't keep this as your permanent, your primary log, but it's very easy to upload your logging software to this site and have all your log available for people to view. I also have it set up so that whenever I make a contact on FT8 or FT4 using W6DQ, the contacts automatically go up to this site. It can also be tied into Logbook of the World, and you can manipulate files back and forth with that. So you can do that. And once you do that, once you upload your log, you can start to get awards. And these awards are available for free to get them shown up on your website, or you can purchase a certificate if you'd like to have a certificate. But the way they show up, if you just simply earn them, is they'll show up on your page in the upper right-hand corner for each of the awards you've won. So there's a lot of things you can do with QRZ for free. You can also get different membership levels which give you more features and more capabilities, but they don't really apply to the pages you have. That's all pretty much free just for registering. So you do need to register, and I have details in my presentation on QSLing in a digital an online world has information on QRZ.com in there. Also, in my logging software program, there's details on using QRZ in there.
Many thanks, Anthony. Thank you. Anything to add on that, Dennis?
No, that's great. Great guidance on that. There's a lot of things that Anthony has covered that I don't do on my QRZ page. I look at my bio just kind of talks about me and my station here, and I enjoy that. But yeah, you've got that up there.
It's great. One thing you, by the way, neither of you probably knew, but our club is actually very strong on CW in particular. There are a lot of CW fans, and in fact, Roger G3LDI, who booked you for these talks, he is the GB. Let me get this right. GB2CW coordinator for the RSGB for the UK. So he is very keen, and lots of others, and they're always bending people's arms around their back to learn that great art. So
wonderful.
I don't think we have any questions as such specifically, just lots of thank yous and compliments and things. Roger says he's going to be in touch with you again for maybe giving us some more talks next year, so watch out for that. And Tammy and I have agreed, because it was nice to give something back, although I hadn't quite realised it was going to be at 2 a.m. in the morning here, but look forward to seeing you guys. I don't know how sharp we'll be. I don't think I've ever done anything like this at 2 in the morning. So, but it'll be nice to give something back to you and just explain how we do NARC Live. You asked us just to share that. So
looking forward to seeing you on Rat Pack. I'm going to really enjoy that. That'll be wonderful.
That'll be good.
And I was going to offer to get on the air and get on HF right now and invite people to join me, but the lightning is sort of precluding that here.
Yeah.
It's died down a little bit, but it hasn't completely ended. And we got over a half an inch to 3/4 of an inch of rain during the presentation, so it's been raining rather hard here.
Yeah. No, it sounds rough. Thank you both very, very much indeed. It's been lovely to meet you on the air and online, and it will be great to maybe work you on the air as well. I'm sure you've inspired many who maybe just get started in the hobby, and usually people, as you said at the beginning, I remember, Anthony, you said people usually start with FM and VHF, and sometimes maybe they just listen and there's not much going on, and they can even lose interest in the hobby. So it's really important to give HF a try, and I think what you two have both shown us is that it doesn't have to be that complicated or expensive to do it, and there's so much to it, as must have done 4 hours or so on this now. So you've just shown, I'm sure you've just touched the surface. So thank you both very, very much indeed.
If you want to, I was actually going to add something to the comment that you made.
Sure, of course do. Yeah, please do.
Struck a chord about the hobby not having to be expensive. I started out as a novice with a total expenditure of $11 US. That was my first station, and it was basically some surplus electronic, military surplus transmitter and receiver that I got on the air. I had parts to build a power supply that one of my Elmers had given me. I just loaded me up with parts, and I had enough parts to build a power supply to run those radios, and I was on the air with some scrap wire that I had to put an antenna up, and that's all it took. And of course, I've come quite a ways since then, but I wish I still had that first station.
I could see from the equipment behind, because you're not that's not a virtual screen. That's actually what your shack looks like.
That's the real thing. That's the real deal. It's not a virtual screen.
One thing I'm very curious about, actually, Dennis, I will ask you now as you're mentioning that. To your right, immediately behind you, on the table behind you, what is that? Because it's this. What is that?
That is, it's actually not hooked up to anything. It's a receiver. It's an AGS. I can actually turn that a little bit so you can see it.
Because we can just see the side view, and it's an unusual shape. So, look, there we go.
It's a rack-mounted receiver, and this is where this is a coil rack, so the little plug-in coils go in the rack up there. That's what that's for.
Wow.
And this is one of the early super heterodyne shortwave receivers that was manufactured by National Radio back in the 30s, 1933. And I've got 3 of these. They only made 300 of them, and I've got 3 models. There are 3 different models of this receiver in the collection. You can see 2 more of them on the shelf back up there.
Well, this is one of 5 rooms. Is 5 rooms or 4 rooms, Dennis?
More than this. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rooms in the ham shack. Actually, seven. It's
Goodness.
literally a house that's the ham shack.
Wow.
7 rooms. This is my office, so I've got radios in here. Basically, the stuff that's in this room is just display. Although I'm trying to get a working station in here with some of this really nice vintage gear we'll have. But I've got six radio rooms plus a workshop. You
can see Dennis in the one. If you take a look at the slide right here, you can see Dennis at one of his stations.
Okay, we just
actually 2 of his stations.
We'll just bring it back. Oh yes, yes.
Things have changed a bit since that photograph was taken, but there's a lot on the QRZ page. There's a lot of pictures of some of the stuff that I've got here.
And I guess your email address there gives us a clue. Collins user at yahoo.com. So that's you're a great fan.
I've been a director in the Collins Collectors Association for a number of years, and this is the first year I'm not a director, but I'm still the secretary. So, but yeah, that's been a lifelong passion, is collecting Collins. Pretty much everything, all the radios in that room are Collins radios, including the desk belong to Art Collins.
Wow.
Now, Dennis and I have been working together for over 4 years, and we had not met until last month. He was at Dayton, and I knew exactly where to find him. I went to the Collins booth for the Collins collectors at Dayton, and I immediately found Dennis and his wife. So it was pretty easy to track him down.
Yeah, that was funny. Of course, we had a heck of a time trying to find you out in the cellars there, the flea market. But yeah, that was good fun, and it was really great to meet you in person, and always great to have an eyeball QSO. And that's a small smattering of radios that we have here. There's quite a few, a lot of, and of course that is one of my passions is the historical side of radio, and looking at these are all, in my humble opinion, these are all significant radios in the progression of receiver development over the years. So we've got a lot of different pieces like that, plus a lot of modern stuff. Everything from a 1-tube regen set all the way up to a Flex 6700. So we've got a little bit.
You span all of the generations of technology.
We span everything, yes. I have Collins radios from pretty much every decade that they manufactured equipment, starting in the 30s, going into the 40s, the 50s, 60s, and 70s and 80s. So.
Well, once again, to both of you for these last 4 weeks of talks and all the information that you've imparted, and most importantly, the inspiration that I'm sure you'll have given a lot of people to try HF. And if they've already tried it and maybe not got on, I'm sure you've filled in a lot of the gaps of knowledge that they need to be successful and enjoy that band. So thanks once again, and we look forward to seeing you again, maybe next year for another talk.
Thank you so much
for everyone. Hope to hear you on the air.
Thanks very much. So thanks once again to Anthony K8ZT over in Ohio and Dennis W6DQ over in California. 7-3.
Thanks very much. 7-3.
Wonderful. There's so much. I've picked up lots. I know I'm not the biggest HF user, but I hope you've picked up lots as well, and we look forward to meeting those guys again, although meeting them in about 10 days at 2 in the morning, so that'll be interesting. Anyway, that's almost it for NARC Live for tonight. Just to let you know that what's happening at the club this coming week. On Sunday, of course, we've got the Barford Radio Rally. Don't forget, between 9 and 2, by the way, that's open to visitors. 9, and it ends by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. In the evening at 7 o'clock, the GB2RS News on GB3MB. On Monday at 7:30, the Monday Night Net on GB3MB as well. And at 8 o'clock, the 80 metre CW net on 3.543 megahertz. And don't forget that tonight at 8 as well, 8 o'clock online from the RSGB on the QMX Plus. And then next Wednesday, July the 10th, it's an informal social meeting at CNS, and we'll be back here again in 2 weeks' time. So don't forget to keep in touch with all of your news and stories and pictures and everything, and that summer pictures we'd love to see as well. Thanks very much for joining us. But until next time, from Tammy M0TC.
Bye-bye.
And from me, David G7URP. Take care. Look after yourselves. Bye-bye.